I do have a live guest for you right now. This is Dr. Nashid Madyun with FAMU, which stands for Florida A&M University. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us here. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Good morning to you.
So I asked you to come on the show to talk about the significance and background of Black History Month. And it turns out that FAMU actually has a lot to do with Black history. Am I right?
Yes, FAMU is the #1 public HBCU, historically Black college and university in the United States. And it has on its campus a Black archives, research center, and museum that has over 1 million documents and artifacts that chronicles the contributions of African Americans to the strengths of society. That's intellectual property, art, music, history, and the genres of African American history dating back to Africa to the present. And it's pretty remarkable, actually.
What sort of artifacts are we talking about? What can we see? And can the general public, I mean, pre-COVID or now even present day, go and check out these artifacts?
There are some videos of the 13 galleries that are on campus and some of the exhibits that change. We do chronicle, and you go to the website FAMU, that Black Archives. And yes, some of the artifacts look at documents such as manumission papers. If during slavery and the enslaved found a way to pull together the resources to buy the way to freedom, you had to travel from state to state or city to city with a document showing that you're free. And so a manumission paper or paper acknowledging your freedom had to be with you. And so we have documents such as that. Great writers such as Zora Neale Hurston, who's from Florida. We do show some of the letters of correspondence and some of her brilliance on display, but anywhere from those types of documents to uh, chains from slavery, wonderful works of art by artists from the Harlem Renaissance. Um, and I'm not sure your age range or some of the listeners may know, but there was a time where we listened to music with record players and 78s or ALPs, long players. So popular culture to history, anything that documented those contributions can be found in the 13 galleries on our campus.
We just heard Fox Soul's Dr. Sean. He did a segment on Fox 11 Los Angeles talking about how throughout the year, um, you know, Black history is celebrated, but it's this month where we kind of draw the national attention to it. What do you
All right.
think about the significance of this month?
Well, so if we go back to a period in the early 20th century where Jim Crow, in black codes, this rise of the Ku Klux Klan against this this parallel rise of the black middle class. You had African Americans who are now becoming entrepreneurs, uh, dentists, lawyers, and uh, business women and men. They're voting as well. Their families are rising out of this enslavement era, which just 40 or 50 years prior. And Carter G. Woodson wanted to highlight that through scholarship and expose it. We didn't have, television and broad radio broadcast or the social media that we have now. We had publications and Black History Week, at least a week in the 1920s, was the initial purpose to try to find a way to disseminate these wonderful feats. African Americans coming back from World War One and that type of Black identity, all of those different elements in the society that's growing the population and becoming a very good contribution to civilization needed to be shared with individuals that either wanted to be a part of what we call a great migration from the South to the North to work, or people who wanted to go to college and see that there's successful individuals at what we call HBCUs or predominantly white institutions. Either way, it needed to be communicated. And Carter G. Woodson saw that maybe the birthday week of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, which is in the second week of February, could be a perfect time. It grew in popularity, and over several decades later, the Black History Month blossomed. And so some people argue, why is it in the shortest month of the year? Well, the original time was due to those special birthdays, Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. But as we see now, it's been a great opportunity for individuals to identify with great inventors, intellectual property, great scholars, great businessmen and women. And it's good when you start to identify where you want to go in life, it's good to see someone who has surpassed obstacles that may also end up in your way.
Now, this is the first Black History Month since the death of George Floyd last year, and there's been protests and unrest across the country. How do you think this is different, and how do we move forward as a nation?
Well, so now we see unsung heroes. We see community heroes. We see people who make food in their kitchens and find a way to deliver it to family members and or neighbors that can't come outside for whatever reason. So we now have come together as a community and we rise above politics. We've seen Democrats and Republicans cross the aisle to identify Black Lives Matter issues. And we realize that this question of African American history, humanity, is a question of American history and American humanity as a whole. There are a lot of challenges. And so we as individuals can find a way, and we've identified ways as we learn about others. We've identified opportunities and avenues to contribute to our community. And just like that pebble in the water that creates that ripple effect or the butterfly effect, it can influence the world.
How do you think that we are or we have been doing in most recent years past? I mean, just a couple, actually 3 years ago now, because it was 2018, we had a major film, Green Book, that got so many accolades and awards for bringing attention to how things were back in the civil rights era.
Wow, it's funny. I just happened to have had a discussion about this yesterday, and the Green Book. So yeah, actually, there was actually a Green Book, a guide for African American or Negro motorists going through the South and knowing during the era of Jim Crow where they could and could not go to eat and sleep and get gas so that they could participate. And you also have what you call the Chitlin Circuit, which is kind of a small um, uh, route of concert venues and halls that made their money selling, uh, fried fish and chitlins and things of that nature, soul food. But because of that movie and the understanding that you have uh, elite performers and professionals that would succumb to Jim Crow also parallels the issue of African Americans in the military who fight for the country, vote in this country, and come back and realize they're still second class citizens. And it brings light, just like in the 1850s, Uncle Tom's Cabin. There's always a time and a turning point where we need to and have the opportunity to shed light on the ills of society so that society can heal and grow. And I believe that movie did contribute to that, as did George Floyd, and as we're doing now with this segment.
Is there anything else that you'd like to tell me about FAMU? How long have you been there? About the history of the university? Anything?
Well, the university is a prime example in the 1880s, just after Reconstruction, and in Florida, when you have a lot of unrest and a lot of African Americans beginning to vote and participate in politics, that grew into a wonderful research institution. This institution has contributed to doctors and lawyers and mayors, including, Atlanta, and individuals that are participating in the democratic process now. There are a lot of wonderful feats that FAMU has contributed to, but also this museum has 13 galleries on campus and two external entities off campus, and it's been operating since the early 1970s. And it houses not just artifacts and documents and memorabilia for Florida and Florida A&M University, but the southeast region of the United States. So if you have the chance, not just this museum, but any museum in the United States, it is an opportunity to either go online or visit in person so that you can identify with these feats and triumphs of American society.
All right, Dr. Nashid Madyun from Florida A&M University, out there live in Tallahassee, Florida this morning. Thank you so much for joining us here on News Now from Fox.
My pleasure.